people have been talking about telehealth and how it's going to take off soon. And, people working in it have been so excited about it previously, but, there hasn't really been a real need. So I do think in this time, we are going to see a lot of innovation, if I can, turn some kind of positive light on coronavirus in the way that we're able to treat patients who do not have the same access to care as a lot of people.
Dear Family is a podcast hosted by Rachel Steinman, a writer, an educator, and a mental health advocate. And Rachel gets us up close and personal, so we feel a strong connection, familiarity, and comfort with her guests. So settle in and join us as we search for true healing and journey with Rachel and her most interesting guests.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're all well. I am wishing you the best during this incredibly unusual time. And I just want to thank you so much for listening and subscribing, whether it's on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or Stitcher or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. It means a lot to me. And thanks so much for writing those 5-star reviews because it really does help me grow. I am so excited to introduce this incredible father and daughter duo, a doctor and a nurse. Stay tuned and please take care of yourself and your loved ones. Dr. Sam Fink is an internal medicine specialist in private practice in Tarzana, California. He's currently treating patients with coronavirus, and he's been on the front line of educating the public on COVID-19 on KTLA, CNN, Fox, and more. I first saw him when he was interviewed by Anderson Cooper back at the beginning of March. Dr. Fink's daughter, Sarrica Fink, she's a registered nurse who practiced at Cedar Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, but she's currently working at a digital health innovation nonprofit in Tel-Aviv, Israel. Following in her father's footsteps, she too is passionate about educating others. Together, this father and daughter, doctor and nurse duo, are here today to give us factual and realistic answers about the current situation of COVID-19 so we can beat the coronavirus together. Hello, Dr. Fink and Sarrica. Welcome.
Hi.
Thank you so much for having us on.
Thank you for being on. So right now we are recording and it's April 22nd. It's 10 p.m. in Los Angeles and it's Thursday, April 23rd at 8 a.m. in Tel Aviv, Israel. And I'm so honored to speak to both of you. I just want to start by giving you a little personal anecdote, which is on March 4th, one of my best friends texted me about a local group of men who came home from a ski trip from Italy with coronavirus. And this was about the time when we were just starting to really wrap our heads around what coronavirus meant. And we hadn't been put on lockdown yet. And she's a teacher and she was saying, I have to start planning, we might close. So everything was kind of still in limbo and we didn't know much. And I happen to know one of the guys on the trip who I think might be your patient, but we're not going to say names. And I also know about another man who was in his, I want to say early 50s and really good physical health, a great athlete, really good looking guy. And he is one of my acquaintances' boyfriends. And I know he's still in the hospital. And
Yes.
It hit our Valley community really hard. And it just kind of like threw me for a loop. And I remember seeing you, Dr. Fink, on CNN with Anderson Cooper. And that's when it really kind of hit me like, okay, this isn't someone else's problem. This is real. This is happening to us. And I remember you saying that you had never seen anything like this. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But then weeks later, I saw the two of you doing a Facebook Live, and I loved it. I love the interaction, one between a doctor and a nurse, but more importantly, a father and a daughter. And because this is a podcast called Dear Family, I reached out to you, and I was so grateful that you agreed to be on. So thank you for being here with me tonight. Or this morning.
No, we're so honored. We're really so honored.
Yeah, we are. So, Sarrica, how was Thursday morning? We've not really seen it yet.
Thursday's looking pretty good. Weather's great outside. Might be a little sunny. just the opposite side of the world, but should be
I
about the
just
same in LA,
that's
right?
all. Yeah, that's great.
Well, because this is a podcast ultimately about family, I'd love to hear a little bit about your family. So do you want to just tell us briefly a little bit about your family? Maybe you can start, Dr. Fink.
Sure, no, I'd be happy to. So I have 4 children, but I only have one favorite daughter, and
That's true.
and 3 boys.
Nice.
And my oldest son is 29. Then I have a son 27. He's living in Philadelphia right now. And my youngest is at the Berklee College of Music, but of course he's home and he is just turned 21.
Did you raise your family in Calabasas?
Yes, we've been in I think my wife and I, we were married in 1986. We moved to Calabasas in 88. So we've been here a long time.
And you grew up in the Valley like I did, right?
Yes, I went to Grant High School.
Okay, and I went to Birmingham. Very
Of course.
cool. Sarrica, what brought you to Israel?
Wow. Well, I came here about 6 or 7 years ago for a gap year after high school, and I just really loved it here. I really I love the people here, and I love the environment here, and they just have such a different mindset around things. So it was something I always wanted to try, and I had the opportunity to come, so I just kind of did. Not the best timing, I guess, but I guess one is the right time for anything.
Well, I want to talk about Israel in a minute because I really have heard amazing things about it. But before we get to that, I really am just so interested in this group of men that came home from the ski trip in northern Italy back in early March. Can you tell us what happened? You were there at the beginning, Dr. Fink.
Right. I mean, because 2 of them were my patients, and basically there were 14 men that went on a ski trip, and they all came down with coronavirus, and 5 of them ended up being hospitalized, and 3 of them were in the ICU. And I'd never seen anything like that before in my professional career. So I said, this is different. I've not seen anything like this in 30 years. And that's what really prompted me on one Sunday morning after a cup of coffee to write my post and really try to get it out there, because the world is full of stories, and and Facebook has millions of users, and we all write things. But there was something about the personalization of this story that really caught everybody's attention. I mean, within a few hours, it had 4,000 shares. Good Morning America was on about 6 hours later, wondering what the heck I was writing about. They were in my home actually that evening, and I'd never really done anything like that. But I think
Did you just share it to Facebook?
Yeah, I shared it. I made it public, and everybody shared. But I think the story of these skiers, what was important, their own health, of course, is paramount. But what was really important is it grabbed America, and people became very receptive to the message that, oh, this coronavirus is different. We better listen. And really within about a week of that, everything shut down.
Yeah. And Dad, I don't even think, when we spoke about it, you were kind of shocked at how your post was spreading like wildfire. And, it was pretty funny to hear you like, I'm going viral. And I didn't even expect it. I didn't even know that was possible. But I just think it goes to show you that when someone in your community or, a doctor who is you're just a doctor, a regular doctor who has patients who are struggling from this virus, and you're being like, listen, everybody, we need to take this seriously. It totally, strikes a chord in people.
Right. And that did. And I think, if I just come out there and said, these are my concerns, no one, I would have had one share probably by you. Yeah. No one would have listened. But as soon as people heard about, I think talking about that group of skiers, and that was asked on every interview I did on Fox, CNN, everyone wanted to know about the skiers. That personalized it to the point that people took action, school districts took action, cities, counties, states took action, and then the federal government took action. So, I'm so thankful to them. I'm so sorry this happened, but that's what got the message out. That's what saved lives, with the fact that they were the first group that got sick. They saved a lot of lives. You may not realize it, but they did.
Truly, that was like the moment for me, because everyone has their moment. That was the moment for me when I saw you on Anderson Cooper. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is in my community. These are people I know. This is a doctor who is saying he's never seen anything like this. Can you tell us just a few more details? Like what did you see? Did you know this was what it was when they came to you? Like, had you already been prepared?
Well, we were in the first week of March. By the first week of March, we all had heard about coronavirus. It was in China. We knew that there were cases, I think, at that point in Washington. Right. There was an issue with a nursing home. So it wasn't that surprising. remember when my patient spoke with me, I mean, I said, you probably just have influenza, because at that point I was seeing a lot of influenza cases. But he went to the hospital and he tested positive, and he was actually in the hospital for a long time. Fortunately, he wasn't one of the people that really became very ill, and he went home, and he's doing fine. I spoke with him yesterday.
Amazing. What's Tarzana Hospital like now?
Well, I think that the hospital is very, very well prepared to handle anything that comes its way. They're not near capacity, and unfortunately in California, because one of the things we did, we socially isolated quicker pretty much than anywhere else, at least a week sooner than New York. And that week sooner saved a lot of lives. So hospitals in California, for the most part, have not been overwhelmed. And I mean, actually, none of them have been overwhelmed. Some of them are busier than others. Some parts of the city have been harder than others. But no, yeah. I think that we can handle whatever comes our way. And one of the things that has changed now is that we are going back to doing elective procedures and surgeries, which is something that had stopped because of the concern that coronavirus is going to take up all the beds. So that's good. A lot of people that have been waiting, needed procedures, knee replacements, things like that, they can now get them.
That's amazing. Yeah, I'm very grateful to California's governor.
For sure, because we have family members, or I have a family member in New York, me and my dad, who our cousin is a nurse, and she's working at a New York hospital. And when all of this started, even though she was okay working because, she's a nurse and what she signed up to do, she was really scared because they really did not have enough protective equipment. No masks, no, gowns, just not enough. And she's going home to her healthy husband every day. And it was really scary. So I do think California is very lucky, but we definitely have to point out the fact that not every hospital is, well equipped.
Absolutely. I know. And speaking of family, my brother's in New York, and I've been very worried and concerned. Well, speaking of PPE, I know, yes, we're very lucky I'm very happy to hear in California, our hospitals aren't feeling overwhelmed, but I do know that there are not enough PPE, which stands for personal protective equipment, in many different hospitals. Do you have to change every single time you see a different patient? So if you're going from one room to another room, you do. And does all of that just get thrown out? It does.
It's actually,
it depends on the hospital, and really depends on their supply of equipment. I know if you're generally going from one COVID positive patient to another, some things are not changed. I know a lot of it depends on if you're going in to see a patient, what their diagnosis is. Ideally, if there was infinite PPE, you would change your gown, you would change your mask, you would change your face shield before you saw between every patient. But the reality is it doesn't have to do that. Yeah,
the N95 masks, they don't do that. So
I see.
But like anytime, you go into a room, you're gowning up. So you're putting on gloves, you're putting on a gown, you're putting on a face mask. And now they're even putting on surgical caps, or my friend who works on a floor was saying she wears hairnet. They're definitely not throwing out the N95 mask, but most things are disposable. And it is frustrating to see when you work in a hospital on a regular day, how many things are being thrown out because they have to be. There's just not really another way to do it right now. But I'm sure even in this situation on a unit, it, doubled or tripled.
Well, and that just sounds very challenging to constantly have to be disinfecting. Are you concerned about your own health and getting coronavirus, or do you feel like you have enough?
Yeah, Dad, what are you doing to stay safe?
well, even in my office, I have trouble getting N95 masks. I've got, probably about 30 on hand. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to be wearing one all day pretty much, because even though the patients that I'm going to be seeing in my office are not going to have COVID, we will screen those with telehealth. But if you look at it's probably out there in the population, who really knows? The unfortunate, unsettling thing is that most patients are contagious for days before they show symptoms. And it's been estimated that I think 44% of transmission of cases is from asymptomatic patients. So I've got to assume that every patient I see is potentially positive. So in an ideal way,
they're wearing masks, right?
Yeah, I'm going to have the patients wear masks. I'll wear a mask. Ideally, we should all be changing masks after each and every encounter, but that's not going to happen because there aren't enough masks to go around.
So, Sarrica, when you were in Israel when this hit, what was it like there?
So, what's been very interesting is to see how even in such a small country where, we weren't testing that many people at the beginning, so it didn't really even look like that many people had it. But from the beginning, honestly, Israel has been on top of it. And, at some point, my dad called me and was like, listen, this is going to get bad. And if you want to come home, you need to come home now. but I felt so safe here that I was just, like, listen, if it happens, like, I know that I'm going to be safe here. The country is taking, really effective measures to make sure that they minimize the spread of COVID. So I felt really safe here. I think in general, because it's a much smaller country, it's much harder to handle a place like the US where so many people have different opinions. And now you have people saying that their rights are being taken away. And there's just a lot of different voices there. And in Israel, there are also a lot of different voices. But I think, unfortunately, they are kind of used to working around really scary situations and having to listen to the government in those situations. Most people are listening. Of course, you have a lot of the religious communities that are having a little bit of a harder time with social distancing. And unfortunately, they are paying the cost of it. But I would say that here they are trying to be as preventative as they can. And because of that, we're totally seeing great results. I mean, it's nowhere near gone, and we are still social distancing. We have to wear masks and, clean our hands every time before we go into a store. I've gotten my temperature taken before just, going into the supermarket. They're on top of it, but it's still really scary and really hard to not be home.
Well, yeah. And I had just recently seen something that Israel is actually considered one of the safest places to be right now. And whether or not you agree with this or not, I know that they can monitor whether or not you're breaking quarantine, which I can't imagine happening here. But
very early on, I remember they sent out something saying, okay, we figured out a way to track phones because, and they're telling us that they're doing this. They're saying, listen,
right,
you're going to track phones, but it is for your safety and to make sure that people who are sick are not breaking their isolation and their quarantine rules. And I don't think that would go over very well in America.
I know.
But here,
not
a lot of people are like, not at all. People would freak out. But here, everyone's like, yeah, thank you. Because
I know.
I don't know why.
It's an interesting conundrum for sure. So
what
does it mean to be working for a digital health nonprofit in Israel? Are you in a hospital? Where exactly, what setting are you working in?
After, working on the unit as a nurse, I wanted to, try and I guess pursue what it means to be a nurse outside of the hospital. So I'm working with a digital health company. They're actually part of the Israel Innovation Institute, which is essentially a nonprofit. And they promote Israeli innovation within and outside of Israel. So I'm in their health sector right now. And we are actually doing an amazing, amazing initiative called the Counter Corona Challenge. And we're working with a bunch of different companies in Israel to basically, we're like a matchmaker. So, every single day I'm talking to numerous startups who are either, taking their idea that they use on a construction site or that they use in cars or that they use in the sky to try and relate and, shift and mold their product to be something that can help benefit people during this crazy time of the coronavirus. And it is mind blowing. I sort of feel like I'm on Shark Tank every day, having people, pitch their ideas to me in the hopes that I can match them to a healthcare organization who needs their product. And it's amazing. And these people, most of them are like, listen, we know we're not directly related to a healthcare organization, but we can aggregate all their data and make sense of it. So we're just happy to help. And we're getting people from all over the world who are doing this. So it's really just been insanely cool to see this kind of global initiative. It's not just about Israel right now, it's about the entire world. So it's really been amazing.
Wow. I mean, when you signed up, you knew it was going to be really fascinating, but I mean, you just seriously hit kind of like that, the bullseye, because they are so cutting edge and with everything being digital right now, I mean, that's really fascinating. We'll have to keep an eye on you. That's really great. Very cool.
I mean, it's been amazing. And the first thing my boss said when coronavirus hit was, okay, I know we usually do Israel innovation, but this is a global problem. So we need to be on the front lines of making sure we're connecting the right people. It doesn't really matter where they're coming from. And that for me was the moment where I said, wow, this is the entire world going through this together, which is insane and sounds like a movie, but is also kind of empowering.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I hope all the different countries are sharing their findings on their vaccines, and so that we can move things forward and just have like this world brain trust. So
Yeah.
do you know anything further? Do you want to add any comment, Dr. Fink?
No, I mean, I'm so thrilled with what she's doing. I mean, I was saying, I think my wife and I, the second thing we want most in life is to have her here in the United States and in LA with us. But the first thing we want is that she be able to pursue her desires and her dreams as we did, and that she'd be happy. And I think, she's with pretty much a new country, and she's helping them a great deal. And this is what makes her happy, and that's very, very important. And we support her 100%.
Yeah,
So
but
great.
don't get me wrong. It's definitely really, really, really hard to not be home at a time like this. And, to see everybody saying, at least we can spend times with our family. We're all together. Everyone's safe. We're trying to keep each other safe. And I am alone here. So in that way, it's very hard, but at least I'm trying to do my part in helping whatever crazy situation this is.
No, I know. It's like in a weird way, it's like you're a soldier, It's like,
Oh my God, no, don't compare me to a soldier.
No,
they
but
are doing their work.
I do feel like our healthcare workers have been asked to kind of go to battle, right?
Yeah.
And you guys are heroic. And actually, that was one of the questions I was going to ask you, Dr. Fink, because of course, doctors are invaluable, but nurses are the ones that spend a lot of time with patients. I mean,
yes.
Yeah. Wouldn't you say that our nurses are like truly heroic?
Oh, they are. They spend more time at the bedside. They don't leave the hospital. They don't go to an office. I mean, they're the ones that are hospital based. They're in the hospital. No, they're truly heroic, and they've had a huge role, and they've shown tremendous bravery. Some of them, unfortunately, have lost their lives. So we owe a great deal of gratitude to all the nurses, the ER physicians, all the first responders out there.
Absolutely.
We truly do. As someone who, pulled the night shift, and it wasn't even something that my body could handle for that long. I didn't do it for that long because of the emotional and mental stress that it really has on you and your body. You wouldn't even believe, if you feel fine and you're happy and you're laughing the whole night, just the toll it takes on your body to physically be on it's over 12 hours. You're getting in there before your shift to prepare, and you're staying after in case a patient needs you. So to, be a strong person in general, and then to also be a strong person during this time, it really cannot go unnoticed. These healthcare professionals are really doing beyond their part.
Well, and that's a big question I wanted to ask both of you, because you brought up the mental health question. And, I am really concerned about our healthcare workers' mental health. I mean, they are going to be dealing with a lot of post-traumatic stress and grief. I mean, especially not just from sadly seeing people die, but being that person that is holding their hand when it should be their husband or the patient's husband or wife or a child. And I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on this? Are the hospitals doing anything to kind of help these doctors and nurses decompress?
I know. For instance, at my hospital, there are caregivers that will address any mental health needs that any of the hospital staff have. But I don't think it's hit a lot of them yet. I mean, we're in the middle of fighting a war. That's not when you really get the mental health issue.
Right.
It's afterwards. It's a post-traumatic stress. So I think I've not even heard of anything like that now. But I bet when this is done or calms down, you'll probably see a lot of issues.
Yeah. And I believe that the first line of defense right now, and all you can really do as a nurse working on a unit, because of how taxing and time consuming it is just keeping that really strong and positive environment going, and really knowing that you can have support from your peers and your managers and just all the staff in the hospital working together, because you are a family. When you're in that nursing hospital world, Dad, like your team is really your family and the people that you rely on if God forbid something goes wrong. And unfortunately, as a healthcare professional, your friends and your family who are not in that space are just not going to get it. And that's the hardest part. When you leave that hospital and people are like, okay, well, you only work 3 or 4 shifts this week and I work, every single day. It's just so not the same thing. And I think that really goes unnoticed. So I guess a PSA for any, friends and family who know somebody who's in the hospital is just to accept the fact that you're not going to be able to fully understand what they're going through, but give them the time and like the space and the emotional support that they're telling you they need, not really looking for advice just as much as they're looking for support.
No, I know.
It's going to take a long time to process all of this because really none of us are all that sure what's going on. Even those of us in the know, this is a really new, different, unique situation that none of us have ever lived through.
Someone like me who is not going into that environment, I am having a hard time processing. So I can only imagine how doctors and nurses are feeling, not to mention the fact that then they have to come home potentially and worry about giving it to their families.
Right.
Yeah. So there's a lot. Okay. So previously it was understood that the first coronavirus deaths in the United States happened end of February in Kirkland, Washington, but
February 29th.
February 29th, exactly.
It was leap day, yes.
But recently, it's now been reported and confirmed from autopsies that 2 deaths that happened in Northern California, Santa Clara County, actually happened on February 6th and 17th from community spread coronavirus, which from 2 people that had not traveled to China, which means coronavirus was probably floating around Santa Clara mid-January. So
it's very possible. Certainly California is a travel hub anyway. So yeah, and I think when we realize that so many people can be asymptomatic, yes, it's a concern because you can't look at somebody and say, well, you've got a temperature, you're sick. We don't know who has it. And it's one of the things that's going to make eradication difficult. How do you quarantine when there's such wide community spread? So yes, that's, and we may find out it's even earlier than that.
Wow. Yes.
And Northern California is a big hub for startups. So I imagine people are traveling in and out a lot. And Dad, like you said, someone might not have had symptoms. And unfortunately, the people who suffered from coronavirus may have just had symptoms. That's what's the scariest thing about this disease.
And the other thing, which might be not only healthcare providers, but the way patients, I talk to probably 20 patients a day. And there's a lot of fear there. I have patients that won't go shopping for food, that if they can't get it delivered, they're not even leaving their home. I've talked to people that have not stepped out their door for like 3 or 4 weeks. And there's no indication to do that. I mean, you can certainly go outside, take a walk the dog, put on a mask if you need to, but people are really, really afraid.
This is interesting. On Facebook, I saw someone that is a holistic practitioner, an MD, but a holistic MD. And he claimed that he can use holistic medicine like vitamin C IV therapies and ozone therapies, I don't even know what that is, as a means to treat COVID-19 or at least increase people's immunity. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
I mean, there's no evidence that any of that works. I think there was one Chinese study with high-dose vitamin C. But as far as it being curative, in fact, before I got on the call, I was reviewing, they came out with a document today about current treatment standards, and no one right now is recommending high-dose vitamins or ozone or homeopathic remedies. There's just no evidence of any of that. I think people are using some of these things like vitamin C and D as talisman, where, well, if I take my C or my D, then I won't get sick. And if it gives them benefit in that way, fine, but I don't think there'll be any actual medical benefit. That would be really surprising to me if any of this stuff makes a difference.
Right. And a lot of these holistic drugs, while maybe not proven, might also have some anti-inflammatory, properties. So if it's, safe to take, if your doctor says it's safe to take with whatever medication you're on, I don't necessarily think that it would hurt, but nothing's proven.
Right.
Well, though I spoke with a lady yesterday, she was taking so much in terms of herbs and vitamins, and she was feeling hot and agitated. I knew from her lab work a few months ago that she'd been normal, but it turned out, we spent a lot of time going through what she's taking, and one of them was a thyroid preparation. I don't even know where she got it from. So she was probably hyperthyroid. That's what she was feeling. So in an effort to take all these pills to make herself feel better and to protect herself, she was actually, in trouble.
Right. So like maybe to increase your immunity, you would maybe suggest getting a good night's sleep and still exercising at home.
Scientifically speaking, you can't really increase your immunity by taking vitamins. I mean, that's something that we even learned in school, that's not, it's not the same as taking an anti-inflammatory drug or taking a sleeping medication where you can see a direct impact. The immune system is way more complex and different than that. So it's also important that people don't just rely on that. I'm taking vitamin C every day, I don't have to wear a mask. That's totally not true.
Right.
If you get sleep, you eat well, if you find time to exercise, find time to be there for yourself. As you said in your March 23rd podcast, things like meditation, yoga, all those things are going to be very helpful. And there's so many classes online now as well that you can spend all day exercising with online classes. So, take time for yourself. And I think if you do that and you stay spiritually, mentally, and physically healthy, you'll do more for yourself than buying all the vitamins and swallowing one of them.
Stress and anxiety never help.
Right. And for stress and anxiety, reach out if you need it, right? Like whether it's to a friend or a therapist. Yeah.
I have a lot of friends right now saying, I'm just trying to go with it. I'm not going to let it bother me. And then they call me a week later and they're in tears. And that's so fine. It's okay to, have those moments where you break down. I did it. I woke up a friend in Los Angeles at 3 a.m. your time, and I just needed to cry to her because it's really overwhelming and it's scary. And to, act as if it's not is, it's like you can tell your brain that you're feeling one way, but your body will react differently. So kind of like being in tune with that and just letting yourself feel the feels. This is not a normal situation. This is insane and it's wild and crazy and does not feel real. So we have to pay attention to that.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's so many people that are in situations where they're financially concerned or maybe like such close quarters. Or what I say all the time is asking for help shows that you're really brave and, in my opinion, really strong because you don't want to give up. And so thank you for saying that. I do appreciate that. So I have a friend who posted something on Facebook saying that he went to Arc Point Lab. I don't know what this lab is, 3 weeks after he was sick, and to see if he had the antibodies. And it came back that he did have the antibodies. And his quote was, "Okay, who wants me to pick stuff up for them?" And he got over 300 comments, many of which were warning him about false positives. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on antibody tests? And just say you get a test back that says, yes, you do have the antibodies. Are you suddenly free to go out and go shopping for everyone? Like, do we know yet if you can get coronavirus twice?
I mean, that is really the question of the week. And the market has been flooded with all these little pinprick tests, and it tells you if you have the immediate antibody IgM or the late antibody IgG. We don't even know which ones of those are accurate because they've not been cleared by the FDA. I think maybe one or two have. There is a test now where they draw your blood and they can check you for IgG antibodies. It's probably a little more accurate. With all of them, you can have a test for false positive, meaning it'll say you have it when you didn't, and false negative is saying that you didn't have the antibody when you really do. So you have to take it with a grain of salt. But the most important thing I want to tell your listeners is that, at least as the date of this podcast, we don't know if you have antibodies, whether you can be safe or not. Will you get another strain? Will the virus, reactivate itself? Can you get sick again? No one, and I've been checking this daily. I spoke with the CDC today. Nobody knows for sure. So I would not take, at least not right as of this date, that antibody test is meaning anything other than you can donate blood and thus give plasma to sick people that need it. That's something that I know you can tell the test. And maybe in the near future, we'll have a better estimate of what that test means and how safe you can be. But even my patients on the ski trip, I'm telling them, listen, we know you in the hospital. You had the antibody. But when you go out, you continue social isolation, you wear a mask, and you be careful. And I've not changed my recommendation of them at all.
And so when you donate your plasma and somebody that is ill receives it, what happens?
Well, the hope, it's a very, very old remedy. We'll use the antibodies in the plasma. We hope that the antibodies attack the virus. There are not a lot of big studies. There was the study from China that everybody is relying on, I think was 5 patients, another one with Israel, also under 10 patients. It appears to work, and I know some patients have received it and there are clinical trials underway, but there's nothing definitive with that as of yet. We don't really have anything else as far as known treatment right now. We know over the course of the past week that hydroxychloroquine probably does not work well. It doesn't with or without azithromycin. It's not recommended to be used. Remdesivir is an experimental medication that's an antiviral that has shown some good evidence of efficacy, but again, very small trials, and not every hospital has that. If you go to my Facebook page, it'll tell you which hospitals have access to remdesivir. And then this treatment, the antibody therapy that hopefully will work but may not. We were so early that there's no really standard treatment that we can say this works. And that's something that hopefully we'll get to over the next month or two. The longer we can stay socially apart and isolated, the better chance there is that we're going to find something that actually works.
I was just going to say the antibody approach is very old school. All it is your body is essentially building its own soldiers against coronavirus. And I guess some people, have a bigger fleet of soldiers than others. And when they take out the antibodies and, use them to help somebody else fight the virus, they're essentially giving over soldiers. So it's very old
great
school.
Analogy.
Thank you. No, but it's a really old school approach. And it's really fascinating to see that even with everything that happens in medicine, sometimes we actually do just need to go back to basics and figure out how this foreign virus works.
Now, here's a really weird thing. There was a study showing that if you take about a third of the patients that have had coronavirus, either make very low levels of antibody or no antibody. And that's very unusual. Now, I'm not sure what that means.
So interesting. And then you mentioned remdesivir, and
yes.
You said it's an antiviral.
Yes, it blocks viral replication of the coronavirus.
Is it used for anything else currently?
It was developed as an Ebola drug, and in phase 3 studies, this was, of course, a very serious disease in Africa. It didn't do that well against Ebola, interestingly enough. Let's hope it does better against coronavirus.
Okay. All right. I will hope so. And, speaking of other coronaviruses, I know MERS and SARS are coronaviruses. Was there ever a vaccine created for them?
No. And the reason, and there wasn't a lot of, I think MERS was really, it kills so many people quickly, it really did not spread throughout the environment. Now, the SARS-1, which was several years ago, really just seemed to go away. It was here and gone so quickly with so few cases that there was no need to develop a vaccine. Why? Who knows?
So interesting. It's
not a thing now. We don't know why.
That could happen with COVID-19, or no, this is so much deadlier.
I think, I think we should all hope that it happens, but the problem is that the transmissibility of this, the number of people that one person can infect is so great, that it seems unlikely that it's just going to go away.
Right. It's already global. Yeah.
Right. It's global. And based on what it's doing, I would say the chances are very low that, we're going to wake up in a few months and remember coronavirus? Yeah, kind of. That's not going to happen. I think this will be with us for some time to come.
Wow. And what is herd immunity?
Herd immunity is when enough of the people in a population have the virus so that you really can't transmit it. Let's assume that the antibodies that they get work and they can't be reinfected. The number needed is about 60 to 70% of the population but that means then that you've had a lot of people that have been exposed to the virus, and you look at the death rates. That's not going to be a good thing when we develop herd immunity.
Right. So basically, we're going to need a vaccine.
Yeah,
we're basically going to need a vaccine. Okay.
Yeah, we need a vaccine if a vaccine can even be developed. I just read a study tonight about the virus really mutating. Let's hope we can develop an effective vaccine. That would be wonderful. That's a great goal. We should put all of our resources into developing such a vaccine that can be done.
And can you tell us a little bit about contact tracing? Has it begun already?
I know they're talking about your contact tracing, but if you look at the studies out of USC this week, there's so many people in our immediate area that may have the virus. How do you contact trace when you may have 500,000 people that have already been exposed?
I don't know.
You're right. In other words, at some point, the numbers become so large and the virus is transmittable so quickly that you simply throw up your hands. So I think it's easier in a country like Israel. But I think it may be very hard, at this level now. Had we done this, had we started on February 1st, and really gone after it, and nobody knew to do it at the time, I think you could have done it. Now on April 22nd, I think it's going to be really hard.
Yeah, I mean, there's an app here that utilizes Google on your phone to kind of track where you've been and does a quick little calculation and tells you if you've maybe come into contact with somebody who tested positive for the virus. It's obviously not accurate. It can't necessarily tell when you're in a supermarket or, walking up the stairs in a building type of thing. But it does kind of, help. It helps a little bit. And I'm just telling you, like through my company, I've seen so many people that are trying to create apps on the phone where if everybody downloads them, then, if I get near somebody who's been dinged as sick by the Ministry of Health, I would get, an alert. And A, that person shouldn't be out of quarantine, but B, I would know to stay away. So they are trying to start doing things like that. And I'm sure abroad they will too. But yeah, it's definitely hard in a bigger country.
Because we have 340 million people, and that is just when you think of the logistics of either tracing or even developing vaccine. Let's say you develop a vaccine. Now, all you need is 340 million doses.
Right.
That's
all you need, right?
It's really unwieldy to deal with those large numbers.
It's really unreal. So I understand why the ER isn't getting as many people coming in for accident-related injuries, but why are fewer people coming in for other things like heart attacks?
Because they're terrified. Patients, and I've already begged a few patients to go to the emergency room. Well, that's the last place they want to be. But actually right now, the emergency rooms are the safest place to be because they were so well organized at separating patients with coronavirus from patients with other things. You're not going to get anywhere near the ER if you've got coronavirus. You're going to be triaged to a different area. So I think right now the ER is a very safe place. And I encourage anybody listening.
There.
No.
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't go there for a hangnail, but I think if you're not feeling well and you have something significant, please either see your doctor or go to the emergency room. It is a safe place, and you shouldn't be scared. I mean, hospitals are very concerned about your safety as you are, and we're doing the best we can to take care of you.
No, I really think that's important to say. So thank you for saying that. And I have to imagine when this is all said and done, doctors and nurses will be doing a lot more telemedicine. Would you say that's correct?
Well, yes. I mean, I'd never done telemedicine until about 3 weeks ago. Now I'm telling everybody else how to. So now I'm an expert in telemedicine. Who knew?
That's so great.
You're also an expert at Facebook posts. Who knew?
Yeah, right. I mean, like it only took me an hour to post it to YouTube last week, and there's been no views on YouTube. But no, I'm learning this as I go along. I didn't know much at all about social media. I didn't know anything about telehealth. So we've had to come up to speed and into 2020 very quickly.
Well, yeah, and I would say the digital health industry has kind of been on the brink. People have been talking about telehealth and how it's going to take off soon, and people working in it have been so excited about it previously, but there hasn't really been a real need. So I do think in this time we are going to see a lot of innovation, if I can, turn some kind of positive light on coronavirus in the way that we're able to treat patients who do not have the same access to care as a lot of people. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot more patients who are able to get treated at home or, in their communities where access is limited. And I think that if that's one positive, thing we can get from this virus, that we have to, look at it in an light.
It's a great point that this really does increase access to care. There are also digital apps. I mean, you can check your pulse oximetry, how much oxygen you have in your blood, temperature. There's so many blood pressure, so many things you can communicate electronically with other forms of telehealth and even just our phones. That we're entering a new age of how healthcare is going to be delivered.
Well, I'm always looking for silver linings, so that's wonderful. Why are men more likely to get COVID-19?
I was on a phone call to CDC today, and one of the arguments I was trying to make, I was working on some other topics. I said, listen, men are like they were like 59%, and women about 41%. Current statistics. I don't know why. But that's a big difference. I mean, I think that may have been the fatality rate. Men are more likely to die of this than women.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe there's some form of like maybe estrogen blocks of who knows? I'm making this up.
Right, but yes, but that's like a big number. That's not a little difference. That's a big
Right.
difference in death rate between men and women.
I'm
Being
sure
being
that
a
will
man
be
is a risk factor.
Women deserve a win.
Women deserve a win. Absolutely. This is a big win for women on this.
We'll take it. We'll take it. So I have this incredible Dear Family Members private Facebook group, and I asked, and by the way, anyone can join. I'll put the link in my show notes, but I asked my private Facebook group if they had any questions for you. And if you don't mind, I'm going to ask a few. And the first one is actually from my brother, Adam Callan, who is the brother that I mentioned that lives in New York. And here's his question. He asks, although pets don't seem to be affected by COVID, can they carry the virus on their fur and transmit it to humans?
Yeah, hi, Adam. Yeah, I think that's a good question. We were walking the dog, and Milo, my dog, went to another dog, and the other people just completely freaked out. I think that if we look at studies of how long the virus lives, I would think probably no more than a few hours. I think it's theoretically possible, but I know of no cases of transmission. Though interesting, there was a case where I think a tiger got it from a human.
Yeah.
Which we read about a week or two ago. Now I don't know who the human was who got within 6 feet of a tiger, but I'd like to meet him.
Dad, you haven't seen Tiger King.
I was going to say there's some Tiger King reference in there. Okay, this is from one of my dear friends. Her name's Stacy Carter. And she says, I keep thinking of how scary and painful it would be for those who are so sick that they're struggling to catch their breath. And I'm sure it can cause a panic attack. What do you do to help with the distress?
Right. Or how do you know? Yes, that's a great question. How do you know that it isn't just a panic attack? And I've seen a few patients, I'm sure, we're having a panic attack because they have no other symptoms.
Right.
But shortness of breath is a key symptom of COVID. And what some things are doing in hospitals now, they're actually lying people on their stomach, called the prone position, to improve their oxygenation. But if you're at home and if you need to lie on your stomach to catch your breath, you've got to go to the hospital. So you never want to let it get that bad where you're calling your doctor wondering what they need to do to make you breathe.
Yeah. And, I will speak to this as somebody who has, general anxiety. When all of this first started, there were times where I'd be like, am I short of breath? Is that what's happening? Or am I just anxious? And I think that for me and for, anybody else who struggles with this, first of all, you're going to manifest it differently than the person next to you. Some people who get anxious get shortness of breath, and other people, can't sleep at night. So people do have different reactions to how they're handling stress and anxiety. And I think the first thing is really checking in with yourself, like sitting there for a minute and just saying, am I short of breath because, my chest hurts and maybe I'm sick? Or am I just anxious and I need to take a minute to calm down? And I would always suggest first take a minute, calm down, maybe have some tea with honey, like really give yourself a second. And if you don't feel well, but you're still a functioning human being, then isolate yourself and just don't risk, maybe transmitting it to somebody else.
Sure.
That's a good point. I have to say, I bet 9 out of 10 people have experienced what you've experienced, because I can speak for myself. I know I have. I felt anxiety when I've never been anxious before and wondered, am I having a hard time breathing? Because, yeah. All right. This next question is from my other brother, Daniel Callan. And hey, it's called Dear Family, so I'm throwing my family in here.
Nice.
What is the biggest misconception that you've noticed about COVID?
I mean, the misconception of the week is that the belief that if you have an antibody test, all is well, even though you didn't have it or you've had in the past, or that if you have antibodies, that it means that you're not going to get it again. Right now, I would label that as a misconception. The idea that hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin works is probably a misconception.
The idea that if you get it once, you can't get it again.
Yeah, right. I think that's a misconception. Most people are probably going to do just fine. At least 80% of the people that get it are going to do just fine. They may either have mild or no symptoms. So another misconception then would be that, you think if you get it, you're necessarily going to die. Most people are going to do fine. And I've probably got about 15 patients in my practice right now that either have tested positive or I'm pretty much 99% sure they have it. And really everybody's done fine so far.
Right. And Dad,
I've only had the one in the hospital.
Feel free to disagree with this, but, something, and maybe this is me just speaking for people of my generation, talking to a lot of friends, they kind of just throw out the saying, well, if I get it, I'll be fine. And I'm not really going to see my parents. So like, if I get it, whatever, I'll deal with it. And I think it's such a problematic statement just because, there are people who were in tip-top shape, super healthy, who are now in comas on ventilators. So you don't know how your body is going to react to this thing. You just don't. You don't know how your body reacts to stress caused by a virus. So
right. I mean, these skiers, right. These 14
crazy.
skiers, well in great shape. They're skiing really a tough hill in Italy, and they all got it, and really they were all quite ill, and 5 of them ended up in the hospital. So you don't know. And to follow up on that, Sarrica, the other thing is that even if you're fine, you're 25 and you get it, you can be fine anyway. You might give it to your grandmother, and she's not going to do fine. So
I have friends in the hospital.
Right.
My age.
You don't want to feel like you're invincible, because even though you might be invincible, the people around you are not, and this is highly transmissible. So the invincibility, that feeling is a bad idea right now.
Last question from one of my dear family members, and her name's Debbie Singer. And she said, we've read that hospitals around the US, Detroit, for example, have in some cases hundreds of COVID positive patients in the ER, with sometimes just one doctor or less than a handful of nurses and respiratory therapists on hand. How can our healthcare workers do their jobs?
No, it's a big question, and it's a good question. I think that, at the start of this, if you go about 3 or 4 weeks, that was really the case. Limited physicians, nurses, and really PPE. There were nurses that were going in with regular masks to these patients. It was really a challenge. I think as time has gone by, I think we're becoming more adept at handling the challenges. And, New York has really taken it hard. Detroit, New Orleans, those are the major cities, and Seattle, of course. But fortunately, a lot of cities like LA right now has really done well. The virus kind of has a mind of its own. It does seem to jump around, and we're not sure what's going to hit next. But I think as every week goes by, we're becoming more adept at handling it, making sure that we have the personnel where they need to be.
And so do you think that it's possible that we are going to be able to reopen our country and send our kids back to school in the fall before a vaccine is available? I know that's another big question.
Oh, yeah, but it's a question I get asked all the time, and I think it comes like every week.
I'm sure.
So where are we now? I mean, here we've been dealing with this now for about
40 something days.
1st of March. Yeah, and we have no treatment, no vaccine. And you want to buy a mask, you got to sew one yourself, right? You can't go buy a mask. You can't find a hand sanitizer. So we can't protect ourselves. We have no treatment, no vaccine. I think if it's like that in September, there's no way. The other thing is that what if the kids are all young and they're all going to do well? You've got 40 kids in an LA Unified classroom, and the teacher's 60. She may not do so well. So this is going to be a big challenge. I'm not sure how they're going to handle it. It's going to be very hard to get the kids back to school and keep everybody safe. And you may see a second wave, because you're bringing all the people together. What this virus likes is when we all come together. And that's how it spreads most easily. So I think we've got to keep people apart, but time will tell. September is still 5 months off, and we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll have a new reality by then.
If you could write your younger 20-year-old self a Dear Sam love letter, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give yourself?
Well, guys don't really do that, but I'll
that don't feed the stereotype.
I know, but I'm the next generation. I am the stereotype. So
yeah, you're from that generation.
I know, it's that generation. I'm a boomer. So, I think, I would just say, listen, don't worry, everything will turn out all right. You're going to have a great life. Be confident, be strong. Believe in yourself, believe in the decisions that you make. It's all going to turn out okay. That's probably what.
And you're going to go viral.
and you're going to go viral, and bet on the Lakers. Those are probably the things I tell myself.
But it is kind of ironic that it's called Go Viral, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, Sarrica, I know you're still in your 20s, so I'm going to make it a little younger and say, if you could give your 16-year-old self a Dear Sarrica love letter, what would you say?
This is so crazy because I did just this when I was 16 for my future self. So that would be interesting to go back and watch. I think that people don't really tell you how hard it is in your 20s. Like you're in this weird space where you're not really an adult, but also fully an adult and expected to function in society and, have meaningful opinions about things. I would probably, look back and tell myself that it's okay to not handle things perfectly. And that it's okay to admit that you're struggling and that you need help earlier on, just in general in life. And to really go to your parents for things, because I think that took a lot of, humility at some point. But to not be a know-it-all. It's okay to not know things, and it's okay to ask for help. And, it's also really important to physically care about yourself and your body, because in the future, you don't know what things are going to come your way, and you do have to make sure that you're strong enough.
Both great advice. And Dr. Fink, I'm sure you're feeling very proud.
Oh,
yeah, Dad, don't you feel proud?
No, I tell her that all the time. And I love doing the podcast with her. It's been so fun to work with her. We've never really done this before. So even though she's in Israel, and one of the things, Rachel, it takes time to put a podcast together. So, we work hard on the Sunday show, and it's been so great to work with her.
Well, so that leads me to the next question. Where can the listeners find you? And I'll have all of this in the show notes. But
sure.
Every Sunday you have a live.
We've been going live with a video. Sort of like Facebook Live, but we use another app. I think it's called StreamYard. And we're on live. We're at 12:30 Pacific time and 3:30 Eastern every Sunday. And just my Facebook page, Sam Fink. I mean, just follow me.
Yeah.
You probably don't want to friend me because you don't want to see pictures of my dog, but you can follow me. And you can everything is available to the public. And feel free. Happy to have a big audience.
So I'll put both of your Facebooks. In show notes.
Yeah, I always, host a watch party, but yeah, we're basically Facebook Live every single Sunday at 12:30 PST, 3:30 EST, and then 10:30 PM in Israel.
Right.
I'm also posting the videos to an Instagram channel that I just made, so I will definitely give you my handle.
Oh, great!
I'm excited to open it up, so people can find it, because not everyone has Facebook and Instagram. And I think at this point, my dad and I will continue to just update in a really just factual and real way. We're not here to scare people. We're here to educate people. And then, soon we're going to have some really cool people on the show just to offer some new perspectives and different ways of thinking about the virus, and just try and bring some great things to light that maybe some people aren't seeing. It's really hard to get your story straight just based off of, what the news is shouting at you.
We try to be very accurate but it changes from week to week. But, every Sunday when we speak, we're as accurate as we can be for that Sunday.
Well, and, and sometimes I record podcasts that don't get aired for months, but yours will be aired next because it is timely and it does need to come out. Well, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time and educating everyone, because I do think in situations that are as scary as something like a world pandemic, it is facts and education that is paramount. Right. So Thank you so much. I love the two of you together. Your chemistry is amazing. All of you listeners need to follow them. And
thank you so much.
And I look forward to.
I never thought I would go viral through my dad.
Oh, isn't that so great?
But I'll take it, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, look, everything is being turned upside down, right? So why not?
Yes.
And I look forward to meeting you in person in the future.
Yes, when all of this is over, we can all go for ice cream or something.
Yes. When you come home from Israel.
If there are ice cream places even left. Yes.
Oh, there will be.
There will always be ice cream.
Oh, yeah.
Always be ice cream. Always be ice cream.
Yeah,
we're not going to make it through this pandemic without ice cream.
Absolutely not. Absolutely. We need ice cream. All right.
Thank you so much for having us.
Okay.
We really appreciate it.
This was amazing, you guys. Great job. Thanks so much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye, Dad.
Okay.
For more information or to contact me with any questions, comments, or guest ideas, please check out rightnowrachel.com. That's right with a W. Thank you so much for listening, subscribing, and sharing, dear family. And if you found value in what you've just heard, I would love and so appreciate a great review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Until next time, I wish you love, happiness, and good mental health.